All right.
Get my ya notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we all start with it, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to Frame Rate, the podcast where we rate frames. You can probably already guess. Well, you read the title of the episode.
You know what we're talking about.
It's
here.
no divine secret that we're covering Beetlejuice on this.
No.
Mixing up our apps.
2002's Divine Secrets of the Ya Sisterhood.
And your hosts, as usual,
I'm Abe Epperson.
I'm Michael Swaim. Joining us, the delightful
Katie Willert.
Thank you so much for being
Yeah.
here, Katie.
Thank you for having me and calling me delightful.
Absolutely. And you, I believe, picked this movie.
I did.
Off of a list of potentials. Can you tell us a little bit about your history with this film?
I think the first time I saw it was with my mom. Like, it's one of those movies that I think we just saw in theaters, and then just anytime it's on, like HBO or Showtime or whatever,
Gotta
like we'll
watch
just
it.
watch it. Yeah. And I cry every time. I've seen it probably like 8, 9 times, and like every time I don't know. It's a very cathartic movie for me, and a good way to like access if I'm harboring emotion about like something at all. It's a good film to like connect with my heart.
Specifically mother-daughter relationship stuff or any stuff?
Just honestly any stuff. Like if
Okay.
I'm repressing sadness or anger or frustration or feeling resentment or like whatever, and I'm trying to like tamp it, it's a good movie. It's a good movie to watch, to be able to just like feel feelings, right?
Sure.
And allow yourself to release them. Or at least for me, it's one of those movies
It
that
sounds. We just did the podcast on October Sky, and that's that movie for me. So
Right.
I totally know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're both like the parent-child relationship is in the
And
spotlight.
redemption and hope, and it's just all the.
And stellar casting in both cases. In
Oh,
this
yeah.
one, we got Ellen Burstyn as Vivi, Shirley Knight as Niecy, Fionnuala Flanagan, who I recognized, but I didn't
Teensy.
know her name, as Teensy, and Maggie Smith as Eliza. Maggie Smith
Maggie
always.
Smith is the best. I quote, big kiss, mwah, all the time when
They're
she's
all-
on the
Wait,
phone.
that's as she hangs up on someone.
Yeah,
Big kiss.
They're all
Mwah.
fantastic. I think Teensy is my favorite.
Get in the
of-
car and go home.
She fucking kills it. Just kills it.
I will kick your ass into next Thursday. Now get
And
in
it-
the car.
No, get in the car.
It has that magical effect that any movie set in Louisiana has, where the accents are just probably were really fun to perform and elevate everything, where you're just like, oh, this dialogue is like smooth honey in my ears.
Surprisingly, the best Louisianan accent in this movie to me is the Brit.
I thought you were going to say
Yeah.
Connor.
Yeah.
I'm like,
no.
he's Irish, dude. Wait, Maggie Smith
Maggie
is.
Smith,
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
phone etiquette sucks.
I just also one of the reasons I really love this film is that you get to see 4 old ladies be multi-dimensional
Oh, yeah.
across the board. Like each of them is so different, and I don't know, like that I don't, at least up until that point, I don't think I had seen a film where there were like that everybody was interesting and not just an old lady, and like they had
And they knew it too.
elderly women.
I fucking love. Do you know
of
the
course
name of the
it's-
production company?
all
All Girl.
girl productions.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they knew what they were doing.
Also
Rad.
by Gaylord Films as well. I don't
And
think
I
we're
think,
supposed to read into that though.
Something I was telling Swaim is that this is the first time I had seen this movie. It's not a movie I typically watch, but I'm glad I watched it because I was undervaluing it in terms of like what I thought it was about. And I think, how do you say her name? Carrie Curry? The director?
Callie Curry.
Callie Curry.
Callie.
Who also
Callie.
wrote and produced Thelma and Louise.
Yeah.
And directed Mad Money,
She's-
which is underrated.
She's like as good as like a Ron Howard, because this movie, the reason
Yeah.
I thought of Ron Howard is that this movie is as good, if not better, than like Forrest Gump. It has that vibe to me because
Right.
it's like telling tales through time.
I was going to say heavy flashback.
Flashback.
So not only elderly women, but we also see like young women at least one
Right.
woman in the midst of her life, Sandy B,
Right.
holding down that
So good.
age
So
bracket.
good.
And she steals the movie for me. Ashley Judd steals the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, as young Vivian?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
good.
That is,
I'm
think,
always a Sandy B man.
like what you were talking about though, about how I think a lot of times people are like, oh, chick flicks, and just like completely write
Right.
it off as
Right.
just like basic like cry fodder or whatever. But like for me, this movie is about like so well explores the thought of like, we are products of the environment in which we grew up in, but our parents are the product of the environment in which they grew up in, and being able to like see your parents as human beings and not infallible things, and about the cycle
Flawed,
of
yeah.
alcoholism and mental illness and abuse, and understanding like, and I think the important thing happens at the very end of the movie where Ellen Burstyn goes like, I don't expect my children to forgive me for what I did. And she really
says-
honestly doesn't.
Yeah.
Or God.
Yeah. And do you know what I mean
She
about how
like
like
hit them with a belt.
A belt?
Yeah.
but like it's not saying like, oh, forgive your abuser, but it's
Right.
just saying be willing to understand that like there's a multitude of things that go into why we do things
Right.
the way we do, what happens. And like you see her parents, like her crazy ass Catholic mom and her dad who just like treated her mom like shit. And it
Yeah.
just is like such a toxic.
Let's elucidate that scene because I think it's one of the linchpin scenes. But I also just want to real quick say, yes, I totally felt the moment I knew when, oh, this movie is not going to be what, like,
You
just
thought
like
it was
a
gonna
Nancy
be,
Myers,
right.
like, safe ride through the thing, is when she smashes the phone. That joke's so funny.
Yeah.
When she's like, don't give my mom's on the line, don't give me the phone, she's going to scream at me. And he's like, she's saying really, like, nice things in a nice voice. And she's like, all right, give me the phone. And she just screams and smashes the phone. And you realize that it's a movie about, like, a woman with legitimate problems.
Right.
Not like, should I marry the architect Steve Martin or like the other guy? It's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah.
And I think one of the key scenes that elucidates Vivian's experience, like you said, is the ring that we follow throughout the movie in several different ways. Her dad, he's such a weird dad.
Yeah, you
And
go
living in
like,
this-
what the fuck? Like, what was the actual
Right. Relationship or...
Well, see, that's the thing is, I think I don't think
I don't think he molested her.
no, but it is like, what is that weird? The thing of like the father presenting their daughters or like virginity ceremony, like all the shit that
Right.
happens today,
Debutante
but like
ball where
that
it's
sort
like,
of thing of like
Now you are a beautiful young woman.
woman, and you're like, oh,
And
like
here's
what is this?
Thank
right?
you, daddy.
Yeah. But yeah.
So it's he gives her a ring, which her basically the mom from Carrie, mom,
Yes. Yes.
is like, well, you must be having sex with your dad, or why would he give you a
Right.
nice
It's a
ring?
mortal sin.
And basically just assumes that she is and blames her, which is doubly fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dad comes in and you're like, oh, great, the dad's going to resolve this situation. But he like raises his hand to the mom and humiliates her and makes her like abject herself to the kids.
Oh.
It's just, even the parent who's trying to defend you is also a bad
Really
parent.
fucked up. Well,
Yeah.
he treats his horses better than he treats his wife, is
Is
what
that a line?
one of them
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
about
Also, the writing in this is pretty damn good. My favorite quote is Willetta. Mm-hmm. She says, Shep tell Cheney everything, Cheney tell me everything, and I don't tell nobody nothing. But I'm going to tell you something right now. Sooner or later, everybody's bill comes due. Let the child feel the way she feel. Ain't nothing else to do.
No other choice.
Which is the point of the movie.
But I love, because they get a comedic undercut on that. It's her telling Vivi, like, eventually, you can't just prevent Sandra Bullock from processing her feelings for you. It has
Right.
to come eventually. And it just ends with Vivi going, shit.
Right.
Like, well, that's going to suck.
Yeah, exactly. And it should suck.
and there's also just such a interesting moment. I do feel like in those scenes with Willetta, in the like past scenes, they do border on like the magical Negro archetype a
Yeah.
little bit.
I don't think it
which-
borders. We need to talk about
Okay,
this.
well, it does. It happens.
yeah.
It's uncomfortable. That part of it is uncomfortable for me.
Bagger Vance.
But
or
I
whatever.
do have to say that I really enjoyed the scene where where Vivi comes downstairs when they're staying at the cousin's house, the race, like, the in Georgia.
Junior with the Confederate flag on his hat.
Right. And she's like, can you make me some hot chocolate? And she's like, go fucking make it yourself. She's like weeping. She's like, oh, do you miss my mom and my grandma? And she's like, no, I miss my own family. Like, go away
And then the
let
line
me.
is, which is actually a great joke, like writing wise. She goes, because she wants to cheer her up.
Right.
Well, how about some hot chocolate? Would you like to make me some?
Yeah. She's like, go make it yourself.
Go make your own damn hot chocolate.
Yeah.
But what got me is, I do think it's wildly problematic and has to be taken into account. Specifically that this is our save the cat scene for the young women.
Right.
It's like the time to show that even though at that time it's only like the mid 30s,
Right.
they already know racism is wrong. How do we know they know that? Because when their black servants seem depressed and a guy calls her the N-word at the table, they throw potatoes at him in a cute food fight. Flash forward to 20 years later, Willetta is still their servant. So it's like, okay, that was the extent of improving her life, I guess, was like, I stuck up for you that one time. Remember that?
Right. Well, see, but that's the thing is, when we get to the 60s and Willetta and her son, I think, or her husband.
I think it's her husband.
In
the end shot, he has old man gray hair makeup.
So they are. I don't think they work for I don't think they work for Vivi. I think they work for Vivi's family, but I think they're like close, and they just are close. Like they live close and whatever. I don't think it's still
it's
a servant relationship.
My issue
I don't know.
With the idea of employment, although I still think it's weird that every party scene is like everyone attending the party is white and everyone serving food or playing music is black.
Yeah.
And you live in Louisiana, so like if you wanted to have black friends, they're around.
Right.
But I think my main problem is with the screenwriter thinking this cute food fight scene
is enough.
Well, that sidesteps the racism issue.
Right.
Because it's true that that's not the point of the movie and they don't want to focus on it. But I'm like, I guess that's enough to sidestep talking about race, but it was just kind of a cute food fight scene. But let's get back to what we like about the movie, because that part is rough.
Yeah.
I really liked Bullock in this. There's something that's really cool about. Is it Sita?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Sita.
Sita Lee. Sandra
She
Bullock
slides into generic American accent and Louisianan accent. Like seamlessly.
I didn't notice her ever do Louisianan accent.
It's like
when she talks to her mom, she starts getting angry.
It's much more apparent when she's back there, which I kind of dig, because it's like, oh, if she's like this highfalutin playwright in New York, she's gonna pull a Stephen Colbert and tamp her accent, so that people will take her more seriously and not think of her as some sort of like backwoods. What does Maggie Smith say? She's like, think of a bunch of backwards rednecks or whatever.
Hillbillies or
redneck,
something.
Yeah. And then when she gets angry and when she's with everybody, her accent comes back.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you don't want to be considered a backwoods hillbilly, you can't call yourselves Princess Naked as a Jaybird, Duchess Soaring Hawk, and say, we raise our voices in the words of Mumbo Gumbo. We are the Indian people, the moon people. Like, all rough. They're wearing headdresses, very appropriative.
Yeah.
And
but it's a bunch of children in the 30s.
It's 37.
I buy that it's reflective of reality, but the screenwriter did not have to make the Chiron many, many moons later.
Yeah, that's not great. I forgot about that.
It's like having a scene where everyone's eating burritos, so it says, por la mañana, and you fade to the next day. It's like, that was weirdly, you didn't have to go into Spanish. Yeah.
What I love so much is just how, like, in the beginning when Sandra Bullock is being interviewed, and she's just so fucking sure of her idea of her mother, and just so, like, that sort of thing of like, well, I know, obviously she had this charmed life and bloody, you know what I mean? And like kind of just like making so many assumptions. You know?
And like
Yeah.
when she left us, this is why and this is how she felt. It's just because she wanted to be famous. But it gets so complex because there's that great... By the way, Vivi, did either of you think she's Don Draper? She's female Don Draper. Like, he does that exact maneuver in Act 3 where she abandons her family, drives to the coast, and just lives in a hotel for a while and, like, tries
That's
to be a new
true.
person.
That's
The
true.
only difference is she can't
She
fully cut
calls-
ties and she
yeah.
goes back, which lets you know that she did love her daughter.
Right.
But obviously, so I was going to say during that period, she goes to a confessional and says all the things that Sandra Bullock already knows about her. But so I like that they weren't saying those negative things about her personality
Weren't
aren't true.
true.
They're both true. She also was a good mother when she was a good mother. But she says to the priest, like,
Harmful thoughts
I
against
don't want to
my
have
father.
my kids. I wish God would take them away and
I
make
wanna
me
be
famous. Yeah. Which is rough.
And she also damns Shep into a loveless marriage.
See, here's the thing, though,
I love Shep.
about James Garner in this movie is
Yeah.
that what I loved about that character is like it shows the power of choice in a relationship because he had every right to leave.
Right.
He did.
Right.
He really did. But he understood her, and I think it's not like that's the thing also that I really appreciated is that it's so not perfect, but they still love, like, sometimes your mental illness or your shit gets in the way of being able to express that. But like, he didn't have to stay.
He didn't have to stay.
And I think
And
he has
in-
the confidence in his own identity to have stayed without resenting her or thinking she's making him stay. That's the whole reveal when he says, when I said for better or worse, I knew it was a coin toss,
think
which is a great line. But I think it's also about, like you're saying, she says, but didn't I ruin your life? Because, like, you've been with me for 25 years and I'm difficult a lot. And he's like, yeah, but I woke up every day and decided to stay here. That's not your
In
responsibility.
a way, they have the same sin because the only difference is that Jack died, but there's
her
some
ex-husband who becomes romanticized in her mind.
right and
or her fiance.
Yeah. Fiance who died in the war, yeah.
but whatever keeps her from loving Shep in the same way that she loved Jack is the same reason why he loves her and he can't leave, if that makes sense. Like, they both have someone who they're like, this is the best human, I need to be with this human.
Right. I also feel like he accepted that he probably wasn't her.
He knows.
He knows, right? And he accepted that, which I think is like, I don't know. Like, I respect, like, he's just like, you loved this man probably more than you love me.
Yeah.
But you still love, like, I don't know. I like it because it's not clean. It's very messy.
I also don't know how you can quantify love. Can't she love him in a different way for different quality?
Yeah.
Like, how does... But
Yeah.
she goes out of her way to be like, I wish he hadn't died. I wish I was married to him. When she's in a bad way.
Right.
When she's... they also make the point of, like, it's a heavily flashbacky movie where you see something, you smell something, it
Right.
triggers a memory. And I love how they have just as many memories where Sandra Bullock's trying to be mad, and then, like, someone mentions the birthday song, or I forget what triggers it, and she
I
remembers
see
a
the
cute
mem-
thing her mom did on her birthday every year, and she wasn't trying to remember that, but she's like, damn it, she was also a good mom sometimes.
Right.
What am I supposed to think? Yeah.
Well, I think Vivi says it at near the end of the film. All the real long-term damage I did to myself.
And I think that
There
line could be to
doesn't
say, we
mean-
all do that.
Yeah,
that's
that
true of
she's
everyone.
Self-annihilation.
And the other thing, though, is how every generation we can get a little bit better, right? Like,
yeah.
the thing of and one of the things that I loved is when everybody was sitting with Sandra Bullock in the end, telling her pretty much the final piece of what had happened when she was committed, when Vivi was committed. When they were like, we're really sorry that we didn't talk to you because at the time you don't mess with other people's kids.
Which
You
was
don't
my
ask.
first thought. Dude, you are like, where were these well-meaning fucking friends when they were kids when it happened?
But it's the truth, right? You kept your nose in your own business and you didn't mess with other people's families and you just tried to support them how you could, right? And that was the thing that you always saw. They were always together. The gaggle of all the children, right?
Always
like they were
drinking to excess, which I think is a choice.
Right. I mean, but like
of the filmmakers.
But they were always there, right? Like obviously they were in each other's lives, but there was like a line that you didn't overstep.
Right.
Which I thought was really interesting. The other thing, I want to ask you guys what you thought. When they're talking about Teensy when Jack dies, and you flash back and see the day that they find out, and you see the mother, like you killed my, like,
she
toasted
like, falls
champagne
on the
to
ground.
my,
Yeah.
But then,
because the dad was proud to see him go to war.
Yeah, and wanted him to do
you
it.
toasted to our son's death. Yeah.
And Teensy leaves in the present day, and they're talking, and then Maggie Smith says, and then the fine French lady took her leave. Did she kill herself? Did the mom kill herself? Okay, that's what I thought, but I couldn't find it anywhere.
I assume that's what she meant because then Sandra Bullock goes like, Jesus. Like she said something to that effect. I think, but all she says is, and then a few years later, the fine French lady took her leave. Right. I assume
I just
that's
wanted
suicide.
to like run that by other people because that was what I thought, but I didn't know for sure.
No, I think that
because that's the movie is not shying away from any of these real life struggles, which is what makes it so great and elevates it.
And it's phrased like that because that's kind of the Southern charm, is take your leave to mean you murdered yourself.
Yeah.
Even if it was violent,
Right.
like you take your leave. It's just that charm school kind of way of speaking.
This movie resonated with me really strongly with two Kurt Vonnegut books, which is high praise for me. Because I want to make sure I'm not misquoting the book. Dead-Eye Dick is the one where it has the exact arc where a family cheers to their son going to war, and it immediately cuts to the body bag coming home and them feeling weird about how celebratory they were. And then also Hocus Pocus, which is a really underrated Vonnegut book, has a long section which was based on something that really happened in his life about this period in American history where crooked, shitty doctors were allowed to sell opioids, basically, totally unfettered, and no one thought anything was wrong with them, and for any cause. Like, housewives would come in and be like, I'm a little blue today, and they'd be like, buy this speed.
Here's meth,
because it has a high profit margin for us. And that was literally the only reason why. And Vonnegut, God, he so brutally hates in Hocus Pocus this doctor that like leads this woman to kill herself, and his own mother was addicted to meth, essentially, that was provided at the drugstore, and then killed herself by drinking Drano. And he's like, I blame the fucking meth. Like, there was a period in America where, and it's kind of coming back now, everyone was just on government meth.
Right.
And
booze.
But I just think of Mad Men with the shots, the amphetamine in the ass. Like, the guy comes by, it's like vitamin shots, and like everybody in the office gets a shot of speed in their ass, and like
that's not
goes
vitamins,
insane.
dude. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And now,
Mother's Little Helper, yeah.
that is the other thing that I really appreciate about this movie is how women were expected, like there was a certain thing expected of women, that they wanted to be mothers, that they wanted to every mother would want to put her family first, and like the priest in confessional was
and
like
live a private life,
carry your cross in
I think that's why
in silence, right?
Sorry to interrupt, but I just real quick want to say I think that's why she ultimately leaves. Like, versus I think she went to church to see if the priest could convince her not to abandon her family, and religion's answer is so facilely stupid.
Right.
Like, he literally just tells her, oh well, try not to think about it. Like,
yeah, like just
that's why
to
she's
put it
like,
out of
well,
your
fuck
mind.
it then, I'll abandon my family.
But then the thing of like, so not just all of that pressure, right? But then you have a woman with ambition, and she's mentally ill and unmedicated to the point where then they medicate her with drugs that are unregulated, and like to fully see the breakdown, to see what goes from just like resentment at situation to like manic episode to drug fueled like delirium,
like beating your kids in the rain with a belt, screaming that they need to be cleansed for God, which obviously, like, she's channeling her mother in that moment,
right?
Like some crazy abusive thing that happened with her mother. I think is reliving
Right.
itself in her. Yeah.
But to be able to see each of those things and they're nuanced, and it's not just like, oh, she's a crazy fucking person. It's like, oh, she was mentally ill, was untreated, also probably an alcoholic. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, there's just all of that. And then
Sometimes she was nice, sometimes she was mean, right?
and you know what I mean? Like, and it all made sense. I could see why. And that's why I appreciate it, because it's like nobody's 100% bad or 100% good. We're all varying shades of, and nice, mean, evil, great. Like we're all kind of in that gray area, and that's what I do appreciate about the movie. Is you see that she's capable of love and of loving her children and being good to them and sweet and being thoughtful. Like the plane thing is my fucking favorite, when she goes outsmarts the gas station guy to get money from the lady to go have her be able to ride in the plane, because that's all she wants.
Which is an object lesson where she says, never, ever give up if you want something. Yeah, which is great.
Which is amazing, because you mentioned the confession scene. After the confession scene, there's a shot that, this is why I think like Ashley Judd steals the movie, is it's just a shot of her looking in the mirror. And you just can't hold on that even. Like, it holds forever, but you can't hold on it any. Like, I wished it would have held longer. Yeah. Because she's just. Ashley Judd is killing it. And you realize. Because I thought she was just a villain up to that point. And I was like, oh no, she's a sympathetic villain.
Right.
Which you see it in her eyes.
She's a damaged person inflicting damage as well.
Yes.
Right. But you see her like that. And I've had this experience of looking at yourself in a mirror and being like, I don't know. In my brain, I don't know who that person is. Like,
right.
how did I get to this place?
How did I get here? Yeah.
And watching her like take herself in and be like, okay, this is who I am, but it's not who I am. Like, she went through the whole range of like, how did I become this?
And she kind of does that later in life too. Like, she still doesn't truly change until the very end, because like she has that one scene where she makes Shep like lock her out, and she's so surprised because she's like, I made this grand gesture with fireworks, and then when Shep's just like, nah, ain't working on me. Not tonight.
Oh, that wasn't what I read at all for that.
Oh, yeah?
I honestly, for me, it was that she was praying to God, and the only way she knows how to do it is like in this big, like,
because she's a
sparkler's
crazy
gesture,
She's this old Southern white lady who has appropriated a bunch of Native American and pagan traditions.
But she's like,
I don't think she knew Shep was watching her, personally.
Me neither. And what had happened is they slept in two different bedrooms
for so long.
Her door was always locked. Like, he went to go try it when she's in there reading the Time magazine and having a drink.
Right.
And I don't think he was like being mean. I think he was just like, oh, this is my door's locked. Like, this is what we do. And
I think it's a sign of how far things have become so distant between them. Yeah.
Yeah, that she was surprised that,
like, oh, he also locks his door.
Oh,
shit.
it's okay. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then she knocked, and I love when she comes back to knock on the door, and she knocks on it so softly. Mm-hmm. Which is such a beautiful character moment of like, I'm gonna reach out to you, but like, I'm gonna do it as quietly as possible. So maybe maybe I don't have to actually have this conversation with you. Right. Like, that's such a great like, I don't know if that was Ellen Burstyn or if that was direction, but or in the script, but that little,
it's a
like,
nice touch. Yeah.
The softest
ding, ding.
knock.
Well, because that's towards her end phase, where she's undergoing her change and learning humility. And I love James Garner barely speaks in the movie. But I think one of his best interchanges is with Sandra on the beach, when they just kind of do cute dad-daughter banter. And then he's like, well, I'm not going to help you because I barely exist in this movie. You'll have to deal with it. But in there, she says, like, you were there too as dad. How do you feel about your responsibility for, like, our childhood sucked? And he's like, well, we tried, and we were not as equipped as we had hoped we would be to be good, all that we wanted to be as parents. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. She says, how about the road back? What's that paved with? Humility. And I love that because I'm a big humility is the old cardinal virtue guy. Right. All other virtues spring from that.
In that scene, this is a question for both of you guys. Shep is about to say something to her, and then he stops himself and says, "Never mind."
Yeah,
What was he gonna say?
Great screenwriting, though. I like the omission, but I don't know exactly what he was going to say.
Me neither.
And I think that's what it's about. Is that's his complexity. Or if please have your own reading. But my reading was has his own complexity that doesn't take up as much screen time, but it's there in the movie. He's also a dad who loves his kids and could have been a much better father if he had interceded more. But unfortunately, he's the kind of guy who just says, never mind.
Right.
Like, that's his failing.
Right. Well,
Is he
that's the
doesn't
point,
intervene.
But he had something. They figured out what he was going to say.
Right.
I don't know what it is, obviously.
Right, like James Garner knows what
but
he was
I
going to say.
think it was because of the context of what they're
I'm
talking
a space
about.
cowboy.
Yeah, I'm a space cowboy. 2 references in one day. I think he might have been saying, like, but you are like your mother a little bit.
Oh.
And then realizes that will just
That would
make
be
it
helpful to
everyone.
say.
Yeah.
Or you know what? He could have just been like, "I'm sorry. No, you don't need me to apologize." Like it could have been an apology, and it's like, you know what? You don't. An
Also
apology
true.
is not
Sure.
gonna
Help.
because we can't change what happened, and like. But I love that. Like, were you loved enough, Daddy? I don't know. Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
well, I like his
Don't
answer.
know.
It's kind of a dialogue hole because she says, "Were you loved enough?" And he says, "How much is enough?" Which is
yeah.
my favorite possible answer. Then he says, "But my question is, were you?" Shouldn't she say, "You just said how much is enough?" That's a non-answerable
Right.
question. He's breaking his own rules.
Well,
but I
no,
love the
but I
line
mean-
anyway.
Well, what it is that like you choose. We choose how we feel, like our worth. And it can be affected in our brains by things like how we were brought up and the love but ultimately I
and
can
chemicals
choose.
in your body. I think that's an important factor that Vonnegut and this both tie in.
But like that thing of how much is enough, and she like accepts that answer, and then it goes, were you? And it's like, okay, from this point forward, I can choose how I move in the world in terms of loving others and accepting love. And that's like a big part of this is that she, has her freak out with Connor about being married. She's like, if I have even a little bit of what my mother had, like I'm better off alone. And like,
That's her objective change in the film. Is,
like that's like,
Fuck.
she accepts the wedding.
She's got a
proposal
lot
by
of
hand.
insecurity about it. Although I will say that there's a lot of elements about the relationship that's kind of like goals, because
Yes,
like one of my
they're
favorite
cute.
things I've done this in a relationship before when it's just like there's a reason to apologize and you call someone up and because they're ghosting you for a little bit to make you feel the pain, you have to leave a voicemail and the voicemail is just
hi. And then she hangs
It just
up.
hangs up. And I'm just like, yeah, that shows how close they are. They're that close.
They're a cute couple. I mean, everyone has different deal breakers. There were a couple things Connor did or was complicit in that I'm like, I would
The
have
fact
walked.
that those people
Drugged her with a roofie,
roofied her and
Yeah.
put her on a
Except
plane.
for
and
the-
And
said,
she's like,
okay.
how could you let that happen? And he's like, well, they're very forceful and charming. And I'm like, that's not a good enough answer. How did you let me get drugged and kidnapped by elderly women?
Well, you know what?
I
But
thought
to
they
be fair,
bailed before he got there.
That's what he was like. They tricked me and blah,
like,
blah,
I
blah.
What
didn't
I
know that
think-
you were kidnapped.
here's what I think is I think that like he didn't know that how they did it.
Yeah.
They just called and were like, we're taking Sita. She needs to like figure things out with her mom. And he's like, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Like I don't think he probably
He knew that they
roofied
roofied her.
her.
But then he is down with the plan, so he's complicit. Because before she calls the wedding off, she calls him and is like, okay, they got me here. I'm coming back now. And he's like, no, I think you should stay. You got to work through this shit.
I think he could
That's
still
true.
not have known that they roofied.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
I'm
Like,
just saying, if he was worried about her freaking out, he brought it on himself. Because he urged her to process all this trauma.
Right.
And then he's surprised. She freaks out a little bit. Come on, Connor.
But I do like that of like he started asking after the first year, and I always said no. Like, isn't that weird? Like she's like, I don't. He's good. Like we're good together. But I always like that he was like, okay, well, I'm gonna let you deal with this in your own timeline.
right.
I'm still gonna be here. And then finally, like I really appreciated that about him, and the fact that he was like, I think he knew if you don't work through this, like I want to be with you, but if you don't work through this, this isn't good. This is not going to work.
Yeah.
Like, we can't do this forever.
That's why I want you to squash
Stay.
the beef.
That's why I want you to stay and
Figure it
face
out.
whatever's happening.
Squash beef.
Squash beef.
Squashing the beef.
I think that is a really important central point about choice, because it always blows my mind to meditate on in a relationship. Like, anyone who's together for 50 years, there's going to be moments you could cut to where you're like, these people cannot be together. They damage each other or trigger each other in a way that's not healthy. And there's going to be great moments you could cut to. So if you celebrate your 75th wedding anniversary or whatever and then die in each other's arms, you would choose to look back on all the bad times as proof of what a great couple you are because you survived these horrible times. And if you break up, it's so human to naturally assume those were all the red flags that let me know that wasn't my soulmate. And one day as I was growing up, I realized those are the same events either way.
That
A
it's not-
relationship is just a function of choosing to stay another day or not.
Staying together and breaking up, one is not positive or negative. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
they're just it's just choosing another, like, in a world of infinite possibilities, it's choosing another pathway.
More things are going to happen to you.
Right,
Like, people think if a relationship ended after 4 years, they're like, man, what a failure. I still haven't found my soulmate. What if you learned and grew in those 4 years with that person?
Right.
What's the fucking yeah. So this really hammered that home to me. Have either of you read Freedom by Jonathan Franzen?
I have not, no.
No.
It was like not as critically acclaimed as his famous one. I forget the name of briefly. Someone in the internet will yell at me.
Is it Lies?
No, it's another one. It's The Corrections.
The Corrections.
Friend Zone. And but his follow-up Freedom, everyone said like the ending felt tacked on or too happy or not believable because it's this story of the most dysfunctional, fucked up, mentally ill family that's ever been assembled, like lots of books are. And the husband and wife are estranged for years, and there's reasons they shouldn't be together. And then at the end of their lives in their autumn years, in the last chapter, spoiler alert for the giant novel Freedom, the husband just comes to where she's living and is like, can we just decide to be together again and like have the last 12 years of our lives be a happy marriage? And they do, and it works fine. And everyone's like, that would never happen.
It's
I'm
like, who are we to say?
That kind of shit happens all the time. Yeah.
Who are we to say? Because everybody's in different phases of their lives when they intersect with each other, right? People might need to go away and have some experiences to be able to come back. Or you're just like, you are fucking not good for me, but you bring me comfort more often than not. And in my autumn years, I want that comfort. I want to be with.
Right.
That is like, yeah, it is the power of choice. Obviously, like, if you're in danger, if you are, being abused, like, do what you can to get out of that.
Thank you for
if you're
saying
not
that. We're
safe.
not saying everyone
Believe
listening to
me.
this, stay with it. Yeah.
But there's like, if you're with somebody and there's infidelity, you choose to stay, you choose to not. One is not better or like more virtuous than the other.
They're both valid options based on the type of person you are and what the situation is.
And that your partner is and how you choose to move forward. Like, I think removing the judgment of like what one event means to a whole life. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the only way we can live and enjoy ourselves, because there's going to be bad shit that happens, and there's like things that make you sad, angry, things that make you happy.
And we don't all get a secret yearbook that explains everything perfectly. Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be nice?
No, like if you had like a strained relationship with your dad, he just like slides you a book and you flip through it and you're like, oh, I totally get you now.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I would kill for that.
Oh, these are your memoirs. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right.
But they're more than memoirs. They're magical flashbacks that make your heart open.
I want to talk about two different things just about the movie part of the movie. Meaning,
What have we been talking about?
no, well, I mean, not like the
physical production.
the physical
Filmmaking,
look
sure.
of it,
Yeah,
right.
because I thought that this movie is pretty mundane in terms of cinematography.
We call
But
it
it's-
transparent when we're trying to be nice.
Right. But it's just like conversations.
Cover it.
But there's one thing that I wanted to point out that I was like, oh, that's a nice touch.
That's a nice
Nice,
movie.
nice.
That's a nice touch.
That's a spicy scene work.
There are 3 times in this film where Vivi's glass of ice and vodka, I assume, audibly clinks. And once when Sita notices over the phone at the beginning, she even says it like, I heard the ice
Clinking in the glass.
In the beginning, she reminds me a lot of Jessica Walter. She has a lot of those lines.
Yeah.
They're great. Yeah.
The second time is when she doesn't let Shep in her room.
Yeah, the door's locked and she's reading the Time
And she's
magazine.
rereading the Time article. And once last time when she can't deal with all the kids.
That
and
scene every time. Oh, boy.
she just like, I don't want to.
Well, you said there were 4 or 3?
No, there's
there are
3.
3. Okay.
And when
And
she gives Sita the glass because she thinks it's water.
That's the scene, right, where
So-
she gives Sita water, but it's vodka. Yeah.
So each time she wrongs that other person near her or isn't listening to someone saying that she's wronged them.
Right.
I thought is
Right.
an interesting thing to make that
point.
point with a vodka glass.
Yeah.
That scene is so...
I've been the kid in that scene. That my brother and I both got sick at the same time and like shit the bed while vomiting on our mom's legs to the point where she started going, ah!
I hate this.
Yeah, like, Jesus, God.
But that like being like, where is
stepping in
Shep? Where
poo.
is your father? Like,
Yeah.
and she's alone.
Yeah.
And she's got like...
Yep.
That scene for me is like my biggest fear when I am eventually a parent.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like not being equipped to deal with certain
Like
things.
physically, I cannot be a good parent
Just
right now.
shut
Shit.
down. Right.
But I still know that, like, by doing this, my children are now suffering.
Right.
The singular event idea you reference, I just love that if you put yourself in the mind of Vivi in a long life of pain and, like, trying to rally, trying to be a good mom, sometimes failing, dealing with your own mom, it's the worst thing that happened, but it's in there. It's like part of her whole tapestry. As the kid, that is the single unforgettable moment. Mom beat us with a belt one time. Like, I know maybe in the 30s it was more normalized, but if your parents never hit you, but one time they dragged you in the yard and
Right.
beat you with a belt, that could forever make you unable to understand them. So I did like how, for once, it's a believable singular event. I was like, yeah, Sandra's reticence is totally believable because she's like, does that mean I could flip out and beat my kids someday?
Right.
Because my mom usually seemed like she would never do that. And then one time she did.
Well, that's like the softness of when she's being told that story of like, we're not trying to take away the fact that she was violent to you and your brother and your sister. We just want to give you some information as to why, right? Because up until that point, she said, I spent thousands of dollars on therapy thinking it was something I did wrong. And you get to see that for her as a child, how she's processing it. When she calls her mom or writes a letter, I can't remember what it is, her mom is committed, involuntarily committed, and she's like, we're being really good. Like, please
Right.
come, we miss you, we love you, we're being really good, we promise I got him to stop. Because, as children, we don't know any better. We don't know that our parents are humans and that we don't know this
We see them as
reality
infallible.
yet.
I think one of the many questionable parenting choices she made along her journey is when she gets home from that, she didn't feel comfortable enough to sit them down and be like, Mommy's brain sometimes,
Right.
like she never went through it with them or told them why.
Right.
She just like hoped it would go away.
Well, I think that's honestly, I come from a family where like shit went down and just nobody talks. Like we just don't talk about it.
But that bill's gonna come due, child.
Yes, obviously. But like I understand her thought of like, I'm just not. I mean, they say she became distant because she didn't trust herself around you anymore. And I think she probably just felt like I could apologize, but I can't guarantee that that's not going to happen again. She doesn't trust that she's not going to, and they don't have the tools to be able to communicate exactly what's happening. And that's not what you did.
Or she became so self-loathing over it that she feels like,
I already fucked it
agree
up.
with them.
Right.
I severed the mother-child relationship and I agree with them. I'm an unfit mother. I'll just stay away from them.
Right.
But then you see them flying in a biplane and you're like, no, love your kids. That's the only scene with notably shitty green screen effects.
Oh my God, yeah, the wind, the fan.
That has ever made me sob like a baby. Because usually if the effects are not all there and the score
pulls
isn't
you out of
striking
it.
perfectly, yeah. But there's just no stopping the feels The feels are like a freight train of feels.
See, for me, it was Sky Captain on the World Tomorrow. I cried that whole film.
Jeez.
I
cried
not because it was emotional. I was just like, why?
Why did this
Why
happen?
did this happen?
So wait, you said that there are 4 moments that you cried, that you wrote
Yeah,
them down. One of them
I
was in
did.
the plane.
That's right. Okay, scrolling. I'm just scanning my notes for the phrase "I cried so hard" because that's my thing I write. Vivi goes into like, oh, okay. When Vivi goes into Shep's bedroom, but the door is locked, I cried, and I then wrote in my notes. That was the first time I cried in the movie, and I was like, "Is that because it's the first time we're invited to empathize with the male's point of view?" And then I wrote like problematic thoughts. Tell therapist.
Right.
That's funny.
What I liked about that though is that she accepted it, right? She wasn't like,
Yeah.
oh, like fuck you, like it didn't. She was just like, no,
That's fair.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Which
Like
is-
very like, okay, I
which is-
accept that you feel this way about
Yeah.
me, and I respect your opinion of me and our
Oh,
relationship currently.
Which is wonderful because at the movie. This starts with her literally yelling, "This is violently unfair."
Cried despite shitty green screen.
okay, that's the plane.
Cried when you're supposed to cry. When
At
they,
the
you
end?
know. Okay, I cried when they speak on the porch.
That scene.
That scene's
And then
is
I-
so well acted by both of
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
And then like I had just enough time to like spool my tears together and wipe snot away, and then they immediately induct her into the Yaya Sisterhood, and I'm like, I shouldn't have tried to stop crying. I should have just powered through and cried the whole time till credits.
See,
I
I know-
love you, Mama. I love you too,
Yeah.
Sunflower. Fuck. I was like,
and then the sisterhood is around witnessing that, oh, this is beautiful. So it's right before the ritual where they're like, we did it.
Yeah.
Our kidnap crime worked. To me,
It's good
the
that we
movie,
kidnapped that woman.
I know that even they had to finish the ritual because like that's a great thing.
right.
But to me, the best ending in this movie is after Maggie Smith says, old wounds heal, pal. I just thought that was...
She's just an old soldier, basically.
Yeah.
My favorite line.
She's like-
the only disease that can survive our bloodstream is alcoholism. Is one of my
yeah.
favorite lines because when they're cutting their hands and doing. The
I also...
Also, she's like, I have a lot of questions. At one point, she's like, that's fine. I got a full tank. And she takes a hit off her oxygen tank.
Which, by the way, once again, because I said at the top of this podcast that I think Teensy is my favorite, because after, I mean, all the reasons at the car thing where she's just a fucking badass.
Right.
But then also, a little bit later, cuts to Maggie Smith carrying up, they're hiking and like carrying up
She's,
her.
like, power
and
walking.
she's smoking. So it's like, well, that's just two different.
The other one I love too is why can't I remember the fourth? There's Teensy, there's Vivian,
Yep.
there's Caro who's Maggie Smith.
And there's...
I can't remember the character of the
Eliza.
fourth.
No, that's Maggie Smith. Niecy.
Niecy. I love Niecy.
Shirley Knight.
She's
yeah.
just so like of the three personalities of the best friends. Like I love her because she's just like she seemed to get out of things pretty
Yeah.
like you saw her life post this period fairly like she just is like very sweet and not like
She's the Soren of the group, where you're like, and what trauma are you living through? And she's like, I didn't want to say anything, but my life's been going pretty normal.
Yeah. Well, I love when she goes, Teensy joined the AAA, which is like my favorite line because Teensy is a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
she didn't drink anymore.
Teensy joined the
Right.
AAA.
She joined the AAA. I just,
Yep.
And that thing though about like that I think it really captured well is those female friendships. I have women like that in my life who like show up when it's fucking rough.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like I was just talking about this today, just with everything that's with Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade, and that April 20 something, just like sometime at the end of April, I wanted to kill myself, and I texted my friend Celia, and she said I'm coming over, and she came over and sat with me, right, and like how important those like Those just the
Just
friends,
absolute
Right.
commitment.
You're
people who
clutch
just you
people.
just go.
Yeah.
They go. They're with you, right? And they're there with you when it's ugly, and then they're with you when it's good. And
It's
they're there
a wonderful
forever,
thing to have. It's
right?
one unfortunate aspect of society is it tells boys that you're not allowed to have that
Right.
with other dudes. as
with
much,
other
yeah.
dudes.
And if it's with a girl, they're like, when are you going to try and make it romantic? And it's like, I want friends
I just
too,
want
though.
someone who will be soft and,
Right.
and nice to me and let me be where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do think it is unfortunate that there's not a movie like this for dudes, really.
But
Do you know what I mean?
The Hangover Part 3, where
Yeah,
they
I
go to
guess.
Bangkok, that really hit me in the old heartstring. No, I didn't see it.
But no, it's a wonderful we talked about squashing the beef. This movie is other than, the kidnapping crime, what a masterclass in diplomacy. Like that one
that
of
the
the last
yayas
scenes.
pull off.
Yeah. They squashed the beef with just a plum. And
A plum,
Plum.
squashing
and it's
beef.
very beautiful, except the New York Yankees hat. I could deal without that.
Ooh.
But yeah, it is that thing of like, we just want to give you the facts because we were
Yeah.
there. Here, like, we don't want you to have any specific reaction to this. We just know that you don't know everything, and we want you to know everything because we're all far enough removed from it that at least they knew. They were like, the world's not going to end if you find this out. It's not
Yeah.
going to get any worse than it is right now.
And it's forgive but don't forget. No one's asking you to say, oh, she was messed up. Okay, then it's not
Then
a
she
painful
didn't, then I'm
fault
going
at
to
all.
forget
then
that
it's
she
not a
beat me.
painful
Right.
memory. Yeah, but that's not what they're asking. It's
Right.
I just realized the duality is on so many levels. It's like drugs, a drug that she didn't know was as powerful a drug as it was, brought out the worst moment that led to this whole movie happening, and drugs allows them to get Sandra Bullock there. So it's like even
That's
drugs in this
true.
movie are both helpful and hurtful.
That's
Look at
true.
that.
Everything is mixed.
Everything is a
But yeah, it's not about
horrible, wonderful duality.
forgiving. It's about just being willing.
It's about
Right,
messiness
right.
too. Yeah.
Just being
it
willing, right? Willing to hear what happened, and no one's expecting anything, any specific reaction. But
Right.
like, just be willing. That's why you're here, Bebe, to know what you didn't know. Like, that is the truth.
Bebe.
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 I have a question similar to the just like about what a line meant. When she and Shep have the end of their arc, where he's like, "You didn't
Is it heads or tails?
ruin my life," and they're like, "We should reconnect physically."
They
Is this right? I know they fuck,
Okay.
but he flips a coin to decide if they should fuck, and she goes, "Let's just fuck." These are not the exact lines.
Yeah, we're paraphrasing.
And he goes, "Sure, let's fuck." No. And James and she looks at him slyly as they leave and goes, "Heads or tails?" Is she saying, "Do you want a blowjob or to fuck?"
I think it's a sex. I think there's.
Is that a euphemism for like we going top? We
I
going
think
bottom?
that's.
I don't even know.
I don't know because I do know it seems like the kind of cleverness of like.
Of she took her leave.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, it's
oh,
like
this
that-
is a
it's a
southern
very
way of saying things without actually
yeah.
saying things. Maybe she was just trying to be pithy and sexy and
Yeah.
said something that was like, wait, what?
I like
What?
the idea. That's even better to me. Is they're playing a sexy coin game. They're like, "Fuck this game. We just want to make love," and that's like saying, "Yeah, coins." Like, before you get down to business.
But it's supposed to be like so. I think that's
It's
subtext
cute when
and
it
it's
happens.
cute. But
Yeah.
I think the real point of the question is so we.
Yeah,
We
or,
fucking-
But
is
again,
it okay?
it's-
Is it okay if we do this?
Yeah.
And also, again, it's the coin is always representative of chance.
Right.
And it's saying, "Fuck chance. You just choose what you want to
Yep.
Right.
experience next."
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And I like it too because you get to see that we didn't get to see their happy moments in the past, right? Really. But you got to see that they
Not her and Shep. No.
No,
Yeah.
but you got in that moment you got to see, oh, they do have a banter, like there is a spark. And honestly, one of the sweetest moments that to me is when he's making her the sandwich and she's like, they put her on a tranquilizer and he's trying to feed her on the floor and he's just like, well, she just needs food. She doesn't have any food in her
He's
stomach.
such a
And you're like,
simple farmer.
oh,
dude.
Yeah.
you're not able
You
to
can't
process what's
process
happening
it,
right
yeah.
now.
exactly.
they're
right.
like, no, she's seizing from a drug reaction, and he's like, yeah, no, I'll get some water and like a
Yeah,
sandwich
just put
in her.
some food in her stomach, and you're like,
Tragic.
fuck. Like, but that is what we're working with there, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
this is a simple man who is, as they both were under-equipped to be parents, I think it's clear he's under-equipped as a match for her. She's smarter and more ambitious and more forceful. Like he said, he just like barely keeps up with her. That's his only real goal.
Yep.
And then he says to Sandra, and then I got too old to keep up and I just get out of her way.
Yep.
Right.
Which a lot of old dads do. Where
And
they're
that I
like,
think
I'll
also
just be watching TV
product
over
of
there.
the time, right? Like, and we can't make a judgment on those couple, like, you know, like being like, well, you could have, you know, like you could have chosen better, and it's like, or maybe he just, it was good and like it was good enough, and he felt like he made the decision. Let's respect the decision. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
It's like you could have gone to couples therapy. Well, it was 1941. People are a product of their time and their raising. Yeah.
Mm. He really was a space cowboy.
Oh my
Well,
God.
We're giving our shitty rejoinders and coming up on an hour. Is there any awesome trivia before we wrap this up?
I did. It's not awesome. It's just that's strange. The previous movie for Sandra Bullock and Ashley Judd that they were in the same movie was Time to Kill, which they also had no scenes that they're both
Together in? Oh,
like they keep
interesting.
coming back to each other. I don't know if they've ever had scene work with each other.
Weird.
Yeah, but they've been in multiple movies together.
Huh.
Very strange.
I still need to read the book. I was funny. I had posted that I was watching this on Instagram stories, and a friend of mine, she responded. She was like, I'd never watched the movie because the book destroyed me. I was like, I haven't read the book. And she was like, well, it's like,
you should,
you know,
yeah.
and now I'm like, okay. Yep.
Ooh, filmed in the same place at the same time as A Walk to Remember.
Wow.
A far inferior film in every way.
Whoa.
Whoa.
But that's funny to think they might have, the cast and crew might have seen each other around town and been like,
Heads or
hey,
tails?
how's your movie? Great. How's yours? It's going to suck.
Yeah. Shane West is an asshole.
Yeah. Ours really has feels. Yeah, so does ours. They're not earned.
Yeah, it's a real walk to forget.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
And that's when the traveling pants come on.
Yeah.
I think we're done.
Yep.
We
Yay.
rate this frame.
I like that.
Great. Well, we don't, I think our rating is
I said
everything
every-
we've said up to this. We also don't reduce things down to
No.
the simple
No.
binary.
No, we don't need to give it a number.
But speaking of numbers, the numbers on my computer tell me that we're out of time. Thanks for joining us, Katie.
Thanks for having me and for watching this movie, even though
Oh,
you
love to.
probably had a prior conception of
No way,
of
I
what
put it on the
was.
list. I'd seen it many
Oh
times.
yeah, that's true. But he would have never thought
For sure.
that Baber had
No,
thought to
it's
see
true.
it.
It's true.
Plug yourself.
Yes.
Well, okay. Currently, I'm on Twitter at KAWILLERT. That's KA Willert.
That's all we ever plug too. That's fine. People always seem like they're like, I'm supposed to say like 4 or 5 platforms.
Yeah, I got like a
If-
project, and I was like, I don't have
my
a project.
Snapchat shit's over on Instagram. I ported it over. Whatever you want to do.
This is my LinkedIn. You know.
yeah. So
My Instagram is the same as my Twitter handle.
everyone
if you
hit
wanna
Katie up
follow
on
me there.
Twitter and Abe on LinkedIn. He really needs a job.
Yeah.
I just need. Give me the job, guys.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you.